I think it's time for us to talk a little bit about this power structure. Um, because there's something that it has been bothering me for a long time, trying to figure out what is going on here. And so I started doing a little research. And in between 1880 and about 1910, about 2 million Jews migrated to the United States from an area it was Poland, Ukraine, part of the Russian Empire, and they were all Ashkenazi Jews who spoke Yiddish. And many of the Jewish people who are now in the power structure are the children of those people. And those folks were forced to live in what was called the Pale of Settlement. There were programs that were run against them. There's a lot of resentment and hatred that stems from that. Uh, and that resentment and hatred is directed against Russia. And so we all know that Joe Biden was not in control of staffing of his administration, but I think we should acknowledge the fact that that administration is the most Ashkenazi Jewish administration in the history of the United States, and every one of these people are the children of that diaspora that came to the United States from those years, and apparently still harbor not only Zionist impulses, which is in support of Israel, but also basic hatred of the Russian Empire and the Russian people. And so people should know the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, is an Ashkenazi Jew, and his two assistants at the time he was first appointed, Wendy Sherman and Victoria Nuland, are also both Ashkenazi Jews. The Secretary of Treasury, Janet Yellen, same situation. Attorney General Merrick Garland, same situation. Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, same situation. Director of National Security, Avril Haines. White House Chief of Staff, who runs the president's time, Ronald Klein, he left, but his replacement is another Ashkenazi Jew from the same diaspora, Jeff Zients. Deputy CIA Director, David Cohen. Science Advisor, Eric Lauder. Deputy National Security Advisor, Ann Newberg. Deputy Secretary of State, Wendy Sherman. White House Counsel, Ed Skisel. And then there are all these envoys and ambassadors that were appointed, some 18 to 25. And this is an enormous concentration of power, and that power is interested in two issues. The first issue is the war with Russia, and the second issue is the project in Israel. And this, once again, is an example of what happens when you have such concentrated wealth. Because, as I said in your other shows, Regis, this diaspora of Jews has been incredibly successful in the United States. Some 40% of all billionaires are Jewish, and they control huge corporations in private equity, in banking, in the technology industry, and in media. And so, what is it about this continued hatred and desire to take revenge against Russia that could be driving what's going on now? Because we know that the money system is what controls politics in the United States and in Europe. And I've heard from many sources that some 40% of the funding of primaries and elections in the Democratic Party come from Jewish interests. Regis, you and I talked about the power of AIPAC, the power of these other Jewish organizations. But I had never made the connection before to the Russian Empire and to this holdover of oppression that they felt at the time, and the hatred that generated, that apparently was transmitted to their children throughout their time here in the United States. And so maybe this is part of the reason why we're seeing so much censorship because nobody, what I have just said, would be considered by many people to be anti-Semitic, and I would probably be imprisoned. Yes, Israel has put itself in a situation to where its long-term prospects have been severely diminished. It's had all of this time to try to figure out a way to get along in the world that it lives in. It hasn't done anything but bomb and oppress its neighbors. It's done nothing but expel and oppress and steal and the Palestinians. And it's also anti-Semitic to say that Gaza was a huge concentration camp, and that under UN rules, people who are occupied have a right to oppose their occupation. And so to say that what happened on October 7th was an act of terrorism is one way to put it, but you could also say that it was a military operation which was justified under international law. So we live in a world where there are two different uh, information environments. And unfortunately, some people are trapped in the mainstream media information environment, which is nothing but propaganda. And unfortunately, the West excels at propaganda, and that propaganda is prevailing in many parts of the West, including the United States.